Welcome back to Small Caps, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stevenson. Today, I've asked Simon Lawson, Managing Director of Gascoyne Resources, ASX code is GCY, to come back and have a chat to us, not only because they've had a spectacular grades result out yesterday, but also just what Gascoyne is doing and lots going on. They've got a processing plant, and I can tell you right now, getting a processing plant underway these days is quite challenging. They've got one. They're mining, they're into production, lots of things happening. Simon, thanks so much for joining me on Small Caps today. Great to see you.
No problems. Thank you very much, Kerry. Thanks for having me on.
Well, there is lots to talk about. You're over there in Western Australia. The flagship asset is Dalgaranga, but why don't I leave it up to you to give us a brief overview of who are Gascoyne Resources?
Okay, so Gascoyne is an ASX listed company, started quite a long time ago, actually, as a spin out of Gilbey Resources, and it took a little while for it to get to the point where it started to build its own mill, but eventually built its own mill at Dalgaranga. Has a number of other projects around the place throughout Western Australia, all Western Australian focused, but Dalgaranga is the key asset that we have, and we're processing through a 2.5 million tonne per annum plant at the moment, and we're extending our life of mine through a pretty aggressive exploration strategy in concert with our production strategy.
And you've come on board in November last year because of the Firefly merger. What was the rationale behind Gascoyne and Firefly getting together?
Look, when Gascoyne came out of administration, obviously it was very disciplined and focused on mining what it had in front of itself. It did that very well, and it got to a point where, really started to look at the life of mine that was left and say, well, what else can we actually cast around to find? In terms of exploration, they tried a few drilling campaigns, didn't really work. They looked corporately, had discussions with lots of people in the region, and finally settled on a merger by scheme of arrangement with Firefly mainly for the Melville gold deposit, which we had outlined, and the Applecross deposit just to the north of that. So sort of quantum 240,000 ounces at 1.47, I believe, was the number that we arrived at with a JORC compliant resource. That is about 40 to 50% higher grade than the head grade of Dalgaranga at the time. And so obviously it was appealing to them. We were a small company. There was the merger occurred. There was a fairly public Supreme Court battle there with Westgold coming in as well. That was, it was a really interesting time for the companies, but we managed to merge, and it was, that's kind of how I've landed in the company.
And prior to that, you were with Northern Star. So I guess, I don't want to make you blush or anything, but Northern Star was a very good grounding for you in terms of, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Structure and balance and understanding technical competence.
Yeah, look, I use all kinds of terms, but it was a bit of a breeding ground for some very smart people who went on to do some very big things. And, I don't count myself amongst them. I suppose I'm starting to feel like maybe it had an effect on me because, when you do these things once, it could be considered luck. If you do it twice, you're really lucky. If you do it 3 times, you actually start to convince yourself you're not too bad at it. So there's a lot of people out there in the industry that have come out of Northern Star, out of those early days. That entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well. And there's a lot of companies that are benefiting from, that technically proficient team that came out of that company, that initial Northern Star nucleus, and have gone on to a lot of different companies. And I like to count myself amongst as one of them.
Well, the merger happened in November last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was completed in November. It started sort of midway through the year. As I said, there was a bit of a legal challenge in the middle there, but we got there. And in November, I joined the board. And there was a decision at that time for instead of joining as a non-exec director, which was the original plan, I came on as the managing director and CEO. So I took over from Richard Hay. His disciplined approach had got them to a very stable point where they had a really good foundation. They were very consistent, and I suppose my skill set is growth and resource extension and challenging accepted theories and getting teams around that and really accelerating production schedules. So that's what we're aiming to do. I think we've been pretty successful so far.
Well, speaking of teams, because Gascoyne did go through that sort of administration, came out the other side. Richard did
Yes.
a great job in I guess, that process of getting it through there. Did the team stick around, and have you got a good team around you? Because I think that's pretty important to you, isn't it, Simon?
Oh no, 100%. I am prone to talking about team, assets, and money. Those are the three key things when it comes to any resource project. And if you can have the best asset in the world with all the money in the world, but if you've got the wrong team, it doesn't work. And I suppose one of the things I do when I go into a new project or a new venture is identify where the weaknesses are and look at those weaknesses and focus on them. And for me, my biggest weakness, my biggest threat, my biggest risk was losing all of that intellectual property and all those people who had worked so hard to get it to that point. So I went up there on the Sunday before we made the announcement that I was joining the team as the MD. And I spoke to everybody on site. I asked them to come out of the mill, out of the pit, out of the workshops, out of the stores, and come and actually, sit in front of me and listen to me and why I thought it was a good idea that I would come in here and lead them from that point forward to try and build a really, a substantial gold company.
And the reaction?
It was really good, actually. It was really enthusiastic. I had a very direct interaction with what turned out to be the alpha male on site, I suppose, was the silverback. he was actually the maintenance manager. There's always one. He's a character. He was a character, a huge guy covered in tattoos, and he walked straight up to me and he put his hand out and he said, "Mate, that's the best speech I've ever heard an MD make." And I thought, you know what? Thank you. That's really cool. It is actually really hard to stand up in front of a bunch of people who don't know you, who probably don't like you because you sacked their boss or you came in over the top of their boss or however it looked. It was a very soft entry and exit, but there was obviously a perception there that I'd come in and just taken over from the guy that had been leading them previously. So it was cool to hear that from the guy, from the person who actually, I suppose, held a lot of the threads with the people on that site there. So, we've managed to retain a lot of those people through that process, and I hope that some of it was due to the fact that I just was straight up with people. I just went up there and said, "Look, I'm just me. I'm not special, but I am here to support you guys. I'm not going to tell you how to do your jobs. I am just going to help you do your jobs. What do you need? Let's get together as teams in different disciplines. Talk about what it is that you need. I will go and get the money or the equipment or the whatever it is that we need to make this company better." And it's worked pretty well so far.
And what do you think has been that moment where, because I'm looking at Gascoyne, our audience is looking at Gascoyne at the moment going, it's turned itself around, it's back, and it has the potential, especially with the announcement yesterday, which we'll get onto in a minute, of becoming a substantial company. Simon, you talk about teams, but you talk about assets, you talk about money. But bringing that team together is really important. Were there some challenges because I've got a visual of the guy, the maintenance guy standing at the back with his arms crossed going, yeah.
100%. You're exactly right. That's exactly what he was doing. He was eyeballing me the whole time. And I served in the armed forces for a long time. I've met those characters before. And I actually really enjoy interacting with people like that, because he was just trying to see if he could get me to break my line of sight or get annoyed or fluster me or something like that. And I just, I thought to myself, this is the test. This is the guy. If I can get this guy on side, then everything will be fine. And it turns out that was actually the case.
Do you think being in the armed forces helped you with that sort of that toughness and that discipline? And is it helping you now?
Look, I'd have to say from a diet point of view, probably not. But my haircut definitely benefited from being in the armed forces. I still retain the same haircut to this day. No, I suppose it taught me some fundamentals about myself personally. That's probably the best way I can put that, is that I was a bit of a layabout at school. I just wanted to surf all the time and live in a caravan and eat seafood. That was pretty much my whole goal in life. Then I discovered my love of geology, and it just sort of took off from there, out of the armed forces, with that discipline and with that understanding of my own self-worth and self-belief in what I could achieve, and making choices in life, and the outcomes that you can create by just being positive and not giving up. Yes, definitely from the armed forces. But then going into Northern Star, that was as I said, it was just really was a generator. It was a breeder of people who we followed Bill Beeman at the time, but the thing is we were all, and Bill was famous for saying many times, but to myself particularly in one occasion in front of a lot of people, there can only be one MD of this company, mate. And I love that, because what it is there was a lot of people, including myself, who all wanted to run the company. We all wanted to go and lead and be part of a team and, generate that, it's not just value in a financial sense, it's value in what I get a real buzz out of is generating the value of a team and the satisfaction they get from going to work every day, coming home safe, but actually really feeling like they achieved something. That I just get such a buzz out of that.
And it seems to me that you, what was the things that you had to do apart from addressing everybody as you came in, saying, "I'm going to be the new guy here, but let me tell you let me ask you, what do you need?"
Yeah.
What has that been like? Because November last year, it's not that long. Let's call it 7 months. What strides have you made between then and now?
Look, I think the biggest thing was that they knew that I was going to back them. They had ideas. They had plenty of ideas, right? We sat down with whiteboards and we threw heaps of ideas around, and some of them were crazy, and some of them were a little bit crazy and actually worked. Things like following up a drill hole that was 140 meters away from the pit. Turns out, we actually have made a discovery based on the fact that someone already had that information. They already had those observations. And when you combine that with all of that intellectual property gathered over those years out of administration, all that geological knowledge, particularly with geology, it's really important because you've got a lot of people who generate a lot of theory and a lot of observations, and they test a lot of things with drill holes. If you lose that information, you start again. It's really reinventing the wheel, and it is horrific. And I've seen it before. It is tough to come back from. And for me, it was about getting around that team, particularly geology, because that's my thing. But I just said to them, look, I don't care what gender you are, what color you are, whatever. I want to hear all the ideas, and I want to put them all down. I want to prioritize them all, and I want to test them all. Let's just do that. I mean, it's really simple.
Was that purely just on the drilling side of it, or was it to do with the plant? Was it across everything?
Look, it's across the grade control processes in the pit. It's across sampling processes in drilling and in the pit in terms of how we, define what we're going to go mine. It's about the communication between engineering and geology and metallurgy. All of those things are so important and learned through painful exercises over many years. The biggest lesson I could teach anybody in resources is that metallurgy, the mining engineering guys, and geology have to be talking to each other because they silo up. They have their own jargon. They get pissed off with each other. There's feedback sessions and people take things personally. There's egos. There's all kinds of other reasons why people end up building walls between each other. But I don't like walls. I don't want there to be any division between our technical departments, because when that happens, you miss opportunity. When you unlock those walls, you create opportunity, and it is massive, the opportunity we've created, across all those different disciplines.
And do you think having that sort of that non-silo effect is the reason that you've made this discovery and this what you're finding at the moment? Is that because of that openness and that transparency?
It is. I think fundamentally it's about not being scared of failure.
Oh.
I mean, the age-old adage, fail hard, fail fast, learn from it, and move on. I said to the guys, what if this, someone said to me, well, what if it turns out to be transported and it's not real? I said, well, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
We drill a hole and it doesn't work. Okay, well, let's move on to the next idea. And they said, oh, okay. Turns out we drilled the hole and made a discovery. So, it really is fundamentally that simple. Don't talk yourself out of an opportunity before you have a go. And, Sir Edmund Hillary had said a long time, the worst thing you can do is not try. He would have stood there and looked up at that mountain and had that battle with himself, because it's scary. And even in our little small fields of technical, there are challenges like that look scary. We don't want to fail. We feel like, if we fail, we might lose our job, or someone will think less of us, or whatever. I don't have any of that. It is what it is.
Without sounding too cliche, fortune favors the brave, I want to ask you about
100%.
I want to ask you about your projects, the Firefly projects, which I think are south of Dalgaranga. Is that right?
They are southwest, well, southwest of Dalgaranga. Yep.
Okay, so that's the Melville Apple Cross. What's
Yes.
happening with that? Are you trucking that up to the mill? What's happening with that particular asset?
No, so ironically, and a lot of people have pointed it out, unfortunately, we've put that into sort of the 2 to 3 year range for us because of the capital cost of refurbing a road or getting a road up to a standard to be able to haul that dirt back to Dalgaranga. That 100 kilometres is actually a capital cost. So, we put it into the equation. We said, okay, here's our deposit or our deposits. Here's how much it's going to potentially cost to go and get it. What other options have we got? Here's the list. Let's prioritize the feed. And so what we did was we decided, okay, so there was a cutback on Dalgaranga, which was going to cost $120 million. We didn't have $120 million, so we kiboshed that. We deferred it. But I said to the guys, we're not getting rid of it. It takes 2 years off our mine life by doing that, but it also saves us $120 million we don't have. But what we're going to do is we're going to drill incrementally around that cutback, and we're going to find gold in that cutback material, and we're going to pay for the cutback. So that's what we did. And Gilbey's East is a huge part of that cutback. It was going to cost us money. Now, from the looks of it, it's going to make us money. And that brings back, I'm careful about using time frames, but it brings back a substantial amount of life of mine and doesn't cost us anything. And that's really fundamentally important.
So tell us what it brings back to the life mine. Talk to us about Gilbey's East and what you've got there.
So Gilbey's East was a series of structures that were thought of as being very short range and not continuous. No one had drilled them. So I said, well, look, let's just drill them. What's the worst that can happen? We fail again. And so we went and drilled them. We put 50 drill holes in there, and every single one of them hit grade over 2 grams. So we knew all along that wall were numerous different lenses that we could go and mine. So we shut down our eastern ramp, which was one of the dual accesses into our main pit, and we used that ramp as a drilling access, and now we're going to use it as a mining access for essentially a whole new pit right next to Gilbey's. So it ends up being a substantial amount of material. Again, I'm not going to talk about volumes, but there is a substantial amount of material there in the range of years of feed for the mill for Dalgaranga.
Yeah, and you've got a processing plant there, which is, how big is that? Is it a 2.5 million tonne per annum plant?
Yeah, so 2.5 million tonnes per annum. We run it at 2.7 to 2.8, depending on the material we're feeding. That flexibility in throughput allows us to process down to a lower grade. It also allows us to produce more ounces if we put better grade through. We find pockets sometimes, so we benefit from that higher throughput. We can generate more ounces faster. Gilbey's, getting back to Gilbey's East. Gilbey's East complements what we're doing in stage 2, which is down the bottom of the main Gilbey's pit at the moment. We're mining Plymouth, which is right next to Gilbey's. Plymouth is actually, for want of, and my geologist would probably yell at me for saying this, but Plymouth is essentially a long strike from Gilbey's East. It's essentially just a parallel ore body to the main ore body. And what happens is you get discoveries, and then you get incremental growth, and then you start mining it. And then if there's no more drilling in between those areas, you don't actually realize that they're exactly one and the same. So Gilbey's East is an extension of Plymouth. Gilbey's Main has managed to sort of be consistent across the length of it. So, that's like kilometres long. You've got Gilbey's East sitting to the north there and Plymouth to the south, and there's been very little drilling in between. So there's a very high chance that we're going to be able to put that all together and create a parallel ore body to our main ore body. And that's not even talking about Gilbey's North. Gilbey's North is the extension to the main ore body in the pit.
Yep.
And then as we followed that extension to the main ore body, we discovered this ridiculously high-grade, very wide zone. When we stepped back to drill deeper on the north striking material, we found what appears to be striking off to the northwest or the west, a completely different zone. And it's got a lot of damage involved in it. It's got a lot of shearing and brecciation. There's porphyry. So basically what it means is that it's a different style of mineralization that's not been seen at Dalgaranga in great volume before. It is very, for me, very meaningful because I've worked in those kinds of deposits before.
Okay.
and they're usually very much higher grade than what we're dealing with. So I'm pretty excited. I don't want to go off too sort of half-cocked about it, but it is really exciting to see these things. It is different. It is very high grade. I mean, and this is where we have these amazing discussions with these people on site that have been there for 3-4 years, who have come up with the crazy ideas, and we've gone and drilled them, and they come back to me and they say, "You're crazy. What are you talking about? Like, how can this be like so much better and bigger than what we've had before?" And I said, well, why can't it be? Like, let's have a look at it. It's much higher grade than what we've seen ever before. 54 meters at 6.5 grams, including 12 at 20. Never, ever drilled at Dalgaranga before. And then everyone said, oh, well, look, maybe that's just a single hit.
One-off.
And we drilled like another 10 holes, and they're all really thick. And it shows that there is a very consistent zone there. And it is oriented east-west, which is completely orthogonal, or 90 degrees, to the main strike of the main ore body. So there's a lot of observation there, even just by itself, that tells you that something special happened.
Sorry to interrupt you, but what made you go there?
Well, look, there was this 8 meters at 3.9 from 24 beneath the surface, which was the first idea that the geology team asked me to go and drill. And when I spent that day there on the Sunday, we talked about following that drill hole up. And within 4 days, I had a drill rig for the guys, and they'd never seen that happen before. They'd never been given a drill rig and a budget that fast before. And I said, we're just going to go drill it. And I talked to the CFO and the accountants, and they all freaked out and said, oh, we've got to develop a budget for this, and we need some money to go and do this. I said, look, if we hit some really good stuff here, we can have that conversation. And we hit some really good stuff, and we had that conversation. And now we've budgeted and funded, $6.5 to $7 million worth of exploration annually to keep supporting the growth of this project. And we've spent $3 million in the last quarter, basically drilling flat out at Gilbey's North to get the initial maiden resource ready, and we'll have that ready by the end of July.
I was going to say, when's the maiden resource coming out? So end of July. So that's $3 million you've spent.
Yeah.
You say it's money well worth spending?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Look, we've probably spent 1.8 of it at Gilbey's North. The rest of it was Gilbey's East and Gilbey's South. And then we even drilled a 300-meter deep hole out of the bottom of the pit just to see how deep the main ore body went. It was in mineralisation for 300 metres from the bottom of the pit. So we know the mineralisation out of the bottom of Gilbey's is substantial. So, it's a big system.
Why did it go so wrong before? And how come you seem to have, I hate to take it, but like a tiger by the tail? How have you managed to bring this and figure it out and go, you know what, it's here? They were just mining very low grade before.
Look, I'm building all of this success off the back of work that a lot of other people have done prior to my arrival. And that is, I pay credit to that. I didn't do any of this stuff myself, and I have a really good team on site that is leveraging all of that information that was gathered prior to us getting here, and gathered since we've been here, and gathered since I've been here. So it is really about taking all of that, collating it, and then propelling it, getting the momentum, having someone like myself, and that's where I will take some credit, is that I am a spear creating a wake for everybody behind me. I will push through budgetary restrictions, about financial restrictions, permitting applications. I'll go and see the mines department and get things permitted. My job is to support. It's not necessarily to go and tell everybody what to do. In fact, I really don't feel that's my job at all. I have very, very capable technical professionals who do that every day. They do the work on the site, and I'm there to support what they do, get them the money, solve their problems for them, be an ear to listen to their problems, and then, work together to try and solve these things. And it's such a collaborative group. It's just fun.
So you like your team. Talk to us about how much money you've got in the bank, what you're going to be doing with funds. I'm talking to you now in July 2022. You've been 7 months at the helm now.
Yep.
You've already told us that the Firefly assets, that's 2 to 3 years down the road. Paint us a picture, if you like, of where the value is going to be coming from. By the way, Gilbey sounds like it's the gift that keeps on giving.
100%.
What are you going to be doing between now and the end of the year?
We'll be continuing to drill at Gilbey's North to try and define grade control spacing down to 50 metres, at a sort of 10 by 10 pattern, so that when we get the permitting through from Demers, which we expect to get sort of September, October, that we'll be drilling and digging straight away, because we'll have that initial understanding and confidence in terms of being able to go and get that material. It is mineralized from surface. It's a very low strip ratio. It is closer to the mill than any other deposit we've got, including the one we're currently mining, which is just ridiculous, but amazing at the same time. That is what we are going to be absolutely laser focused on. And we're going to keep drilling to try and extend that area and make it bigger. We are very excited about Gilbey's North, but we're also very focused on making sure that we have consistency. So Gilbey's East is very important for us. It is within the permitted mine plan already. It is. It has an access straight into it now. We are moving machines into place now. Even in the absence of having a reserve there, we have enough resource modelling done there to allow us to go in there and actually start, testing some of these areas and trucking them up to the ROM pad to put through the mill. And that makes a material difference. We then have optionality. We have Plymouth as an ore source, and we have the bottom of Gilbey's pit. Now we have Gilbey's East as well. So we actually have 3 different areas we can pull from. We're drilling the saddle between the old Sly Fox pit, which is next to Plymouth. We believe that there is actually continuous mineralisation between Sly Fox and Plymouth. We can bring, I think, a lot of Sly Fox mineralisation back into the mine plan. These sorts of things are just easy wins. They're low-hanging fruit. We can drill them really easily. We've just drilled the saddle area in between Sly Fox and Plymouth, so we expect to see some good stuff come out of there. We've just drilled and done a bit of resource work across the Plymouth deposit. Amazing, like very discrete ore package there, very different to the main Gilbey's ore body, quite high grade, which is great. We love grade, obviously. And we can blend that against the lower grade stuff that we got. The volume, the lower grade high volume stuff with the high grade lower volume stuff, and we will make basically a menu, a mix, a blend where we end up with +1 gram head grade. And as I've said before, when you have such low processing costs as we do, we run on gas, we don't run on diesel. We have seen substantial rises in gas prices, but we are still producing and processing at a very low cost compared to our peers. We're able to process that material very cheaply. And if we just incrementally change that head grade, you're talking 10 to 20%, you will get almost 100% increase in margin, because you're paying for everything with that first sort of 0.85, 0.9 grams a ton, and then everything above that is margin. So if you change that head grade incrementally 10 or 20% to 1.1 to 1.2, all of that's margin.
Wow, so that is pretty important.
No, absolutely, 100%. And that's the game. It's kind of like when someone tells you your interest rate on your mortgage is going up. You go, oh, it's only a little bit. It's in a negative sense, obviously, but it is a substantial change to your monthly payments. For us, in a positive sense, you incrementally change that head grade. It has a massive impact, and everybody saw that in our March quarter, where we had a record production, and we had a record production because there were some very high grade pockets on the Gilbey's East side of the mine that had never been sort of fully fleshed out. And we're really excited about what we think we can see with consistent loads on that side of the mine, being able to deliver very similar outcomes to what we saw in that March quarter. So, again, I'm not going to shoot my mouth off, but the thing is, there is a lot of opportunity right in front of us. And I suppose if I go back to why we're not mining Melville, why there's a 2 to 3 year sort of mine plan in front of that, we're about displacing cost. So if we can put higher grade material closer at lower cost into that mill, I will do it. And if I think I can find some more, I'll go and find it, because it costs me less to go and find it than it does to go and build a road 100 kilometers. So I will continually displace the more expensive ore with cheaper ore. And that's just, it's just smart, right? Seems obvious. And that's what we're doing. Gilbey's East is right there, and we can mine it right now. Gilbey's North, we just get the permitting on that, we're straight into it. It's less than 1,000 meters to our mill.
So you've got plenty of ore, you've got plenty of work to do, and you've got plenty to feed. At the moment, you're pretty happy to have a mill there at the moment, plant?
Oh no, 100%. You won't build another mill at the moment. It's very expensive. Labor costs, labor shortages. Actually, having boots on the ground to be able to build these things it's impossible. The steel, expensive, and rare as hen's teeth. Try and find lettuce at the moment. It's just an analog for a lot of other things. You can't find semiconductors. You can't find all kinds of different instrumentation that you need to run a mill. You could probably build the framework of one, but to actually instrument it would be really hard. A lot of those components come from places that at the moment are struggling to manufacture them.
Does the currently we know that the gold price is a little bit soft at the moment. Is that affecting you? I mean, give me your view. Let's talk more macro, if you like.
Sure. Yep.
So while I've got you here,
Yep.
what are you thinking about the gold industry as a whole? The gold price in US dollars is a little bit soft at the moment. US dollar is holding up quite substantially. What's your view?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. Without sounding like a conspiracy theorist, I think that the US dollar is being artificially supported at the moment, and I think that inflation is going to bite very hard and bring that back down to earth. And I think, we discussed before, and I've said this a few times, is I think a lot of the retreat out of equities is people pulling investments back to their basically their wallet in currency terms to hold on to that because they think it's kind of safe. And when you look at that rising US dollar, maybe foreign exchange or something like that is what they're thinking. But currencies get affected by inflation. There's just no two ways about it. The value of currency gets destroyed by inflation, and as inflation rises and becomes out of control, and it takes 2 quarters to declare a recession. I think we're in a recession anyway, and that inflation is going to keep rising, and those currencies are going to get damaged. I mean, Australia's currency is getting damaged at the moment. That's probably the only reason that we're doing okay, because the gold price in Australian dollars is actually still pretty high. In relative terms. But I think there will be a correction in that US dollar. I think that a lot of people are going to run away from currencies, and there really is going to be a mass shift, an exodus. And it's kind of, it's kind of physics in a way. You have a volume of money that needs to shift from one place to another. At the moment, it's coming out of equities and going into currency. I think it'll come back out and go into physical gold and companies that produce physical gold. That's my very strong belief. As I've said,
do you have a time frame on that one, Simon?
Look, I think by the end of the year. I think it's going to move very quickly. I mean, we all saw what happened with the GFC. I moved from nickel to gold during the GFC 2007, 2008, 2009, and benefited from the rising gold price that came out of the back of that absolute collapse in debt markets, which was just crazy. And I think we're seeing a collapse in all kinds of markets. It's a different collapse this time. But because, you still look at the property prices in WA, and they're still ridiculous, even though globally property prices are going backwards and interest rates are going up. So less people are borrowing to buy houses, and that should slow down that sort of construction craziness that we've got at the moment, and then bring that housing price back down. But the shortages in terms of supply are the things that are driving this sort of false inflation. Well, it's not really false inflation, but it's exacerbating. It's exacerbating. Yeah. Well, so look, I think it'll be a short-term one because of the supply part of it. But I also think it's just going to be different in many ways. But I'm a big believer in Rick Rule has been in the market for a very long time. I'm a bit of a fan of his. I listen to his podcast, and he appears on a number of different shows. But he talks about there being a shift to physical gold. I mean, of course, he was part of the biggest asset management firm in the world in terms of gold exposure. He's still a major part of that, and he's still a major shareholder of that. Sprott Asset Management and how they deploy their capital around the world is governed by what he thinks. And for me, he is very strongly of the belief there's going to be a correction, and a lot of that money is going to come back into gold because there's nothing else to invest in. Tell me what else there is to invest in. NFTs and Bitcoin and I don't want to throw shade on a lot of those other investment opportunities, but, they really haven't held up like gold has for thousands of years. And I think it's going to continue to do the same thing.
All right. Well, listen, we're running out of time, but before we get into my little closing bit, which will be, I want 3 reasons that people should be sitting up and taking notice of Gascoyne at the moment. The one thing I will point out to people, you mentioned Rick Rule. The one thing he also talks about is when he looks at projects, ladies and gentlemen, he says people, people, people. And I think what's come across from Simon today is that he is very much all about his people. He's very much about empowering his people to make the right decisions. And it is showing in the results that came out yesterday with the announcement of, 54 metres at 4.5, was it?
No, so look, we did 54 metres at 6.55, including 12 at 20. That was actually our previous announcement. Then we followed that up with some infill holes And I can't quote them off the top of my head quite like that one, because that was the most substantial one we'd ever hit. But they are in the order of very similar widths and very similar grades. And there's some substantial opportunity there. There's, we drilled off section, we drilled on section, we drilled different oriented holes, and we got very similar results. So, one of the things we firmly believe in is we don't want to talk about something unless we think it's real. We want to deliver outcomes. We don't want to deliver promises and then have to break those promises. We will deliver outcomes, and we're just going to keep drilling.
That's what he's going to do. He's going to deliver. All right, Simon, give me 3 reasons why people should be sitting up and taking notice of Gascoyne Resources right now. I think you've given them a few in this conversation.
Yeah, look, I suppose one of the first ones, well, the first one for me is transparency. We are a very transparent company. We don't hide things. We're not using creative accounting with our all-in sustaining costs and our all-in costs. They are what they are. We make margin. It is a slim margin at the moment based on the grade that we have, but you can see from our cash balance and the change in cash balance between quarters that we are very honest about what we're doing and how we're doing. It's a big part of our company. I've got a really strong financial team. They are very transparent and very honest with me. And that can be difficult sometimes for me to take because I'm a geologist. I love spending money, not necessarily saving money. But, we work really well together. And that transparent approach, I think, engenders loyalty and interest from the investment community because they want to see some real operators. And I feel like we are a real operator.
And that's so fully transparent. What's next? You're delivering your outcomes.
Yep. So delivery is a really big thing for me personally, but also for my team. We don't want to talk about things. We don't want to promise unicorns and rainbows. We actually want to just go out there and get it done. So, we talk about drilling these extensions. I don't pump it up. I don't pump up the tires. I don't, draw arrows in 50 different directions and say it's open to bloody, the universe. We find what we find. We drill these holes. We get 50 meters at 6.5, 12 at 20. It's just crazy great. It's better than what has ever been seen at Dalgaranga before. We're changing the future of the company with that delivery of outcomes. And that outcome itself, the change of the future of Gascoyne is really important. It's a personal challenge of mine to lead that team and to be, part of changing the future of Gascoyne, changing the perception of Gascoyne.
Well, I tell you, Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure having you chatting to me today. Thank you so much for your time. And I wish you all the best. And as Simon said, he is there. He's passionate. He is changing Gascoyne. He's changing outcomes. And as Rick always says, it's all about the people. He seems like he's on the right track. Well done, Simon. Please come back and give us the update on the drilling later in the year.
No worries. Thank you very much, Kerry.